Frogs starts our Revenge of Mother Nature week, and there's a bit of a misnomer because our guest, whom you will meet shortly, was done in not by a frog but by a snake, and snakes are featured on Friday when we get to all week long. We'll be having fun with not only the movies but talking to some of the actors, the animated human type actors who populate the movies along with the various flora, fauna, and terrible creatures. Say hello to Adam Roarke. Adam, so glad to have you with us.
Nice to be here.
You got a nice...
Fauna?
Fauna and flora, I think is what it sounds like a name of a starlet, doesn't it? Adam, of course, you just saw get done in by a snake in one of his about 50 films. Usually you're on a motorcycle, as I remember when you first started out.
In the 60s.
In the 60s. And,
you remember well.
Oh, of course I do. And more recently, we're going to get to all of this in detail, but in case you're saying, doesn't that look like the fella? Yes. If you saw The Stuntman last year, you saw Adam playing pretty much what he is, a movie star.
Yeah, I had the blonde wig.
Was it a wig or was it dye?
No, it was a wig.
It was a wig.
Yeah, I could tell by the headaches. So, 14 hours, it felt like a football helmet after a while.
I see. Well, actually, there's a tie-in to the movies of the 60s that we just talked about and The Stuntman, because you kind of got your start in films with Mr. Rush. Is that not true?
Well, I started 1962 in films. I did, my first film was with Rod Steiger and Alan Ladd, but I met Dick Rush in 1967 for
Dick Rush, I should point out, I should have brought out
Academy Award
the director of both the
Stuntman and 3 other films I did with him and a television.
A lot of those movies of the bike movies.
Yeah, all through that.
Right. That's right. You, Alan Ladd, golly, of course, we think of him as an old actor of the past since he's been dead for so many years, but that was your first film.
That was my first
film. What was it called?
13 West Street.
Who else was in it?
Rod Steiger, and shot that at the old Columbia Ranch. And it was a fun show to do. It was nice. I flew out from New York, and then did a couple of other films with John Wayne and Robert Mitchum, El Dorado. And then I was signed to a contract at Universal for 3 years, which was nice. I caught the tail end of an era where there was still a thing where you got paid every week, and you could be home, you know, for 2 days and get a phone call and say, so-and-so got sick on a show, come on in, you're replacing them. I did 3 shows in 1 week. All I remember is walking out of being a policeman in one, being handed pages, taken to another sound stage and saying, now you're a cowboy, and memorizing those lines and jumping on a horse and then running back into something else. I mean, it was with the picture hanging in the commissary, the end of that particular era, you know, and it was kind of fun.
That is...
great training ground.
As you say, that is an era that is past, and we rue it, all of us, who kind of remember the
I caught the tail end,
sure.
and it was just marvelous.
Well, now let's
the contract player.
Right, let's talk about, you mentioned, we've mentioned Alan Ladd and the stalwarts of the past. Certainly Ray Milland was one of the stalwarts of the past. Yeah. How was he to work with in Frogs?
He was marvelous. Really a nice man. Just very, very sweet.
It was so funny because when Love Story came about, and he played without his toque, everybody said, hey, that is Ray Milland, but that's not the... But he was still terrific.
Yes,
why are you doing that to me?
No, only because I think you want me to tell that story.
Go ahead, tell a little story.
Because Ray wouldn't mind, I don't think. We were doing, in Frogs, as a matter of fact, the scene I guess you've seen.
Sure, we just did.
Yeah, and I figured you just did.
Yes.
So what happened is, was on my close-up, and Ray was off camera, and a gust of wind blew up. And Ray's toque blew off into the shot, and I was able to catch it, luckily, right here. I short-hopped it, grabbed it here, and just held it down, finished the take, and he said, beautiful catch, Adam. Just marvelous catch. I mean, it was just fun. He was a beautiful guy to work with, great sense of humor.
Great. And Joan Van Ark, I think this is one of her first pictures. I think I had seen her on the Huntington Hartford stage in School for Wives and Barefoot in the Park, but what an unusual debut sort of for her. Do you ever see Joan much?
I've seen her a couple of times after that. People think in Hollywood that it's so small that everyone knows one another, but that's obviously not so. But she was fun to work with. We had a ball, and I have fun, you know.
Where was it shot?
Panama City, Florida.
And how was the shoot? I mean, was it torrential rains or?
Magnificent.
Was it really?
Yeah, magnificent. I have fun on all.
How about all the frogs? I talked to the writer Robert Hutchinson, and he said they changed his original story, as they always will. He wrote the original story. The frogs were less numerous than he had written in his story, but nevertheless a very vital part of it. And of course, they used a lot of close-ups that didn't, you know, shot at different times. We all know the magic of movies, as they say. How about you and animals? Do you get along with them all right? Do you have a creepy feeling working with them?
Not so much. I didn't have as much to do with the frogs myself because there are scenes where the guys get, you know, they're all over them.
Yeah,
I always get an eerie feeling about that.
You didn't
anyway.
have that, as I
No.
recall.
The closest I came was, I did a picture called Fluffy with Tony Randall and Shirley Jones.
Big lion, right?
Big lion.
Yeah.
I had to get in an elevator with a lion. Well, even though they say it's tame, it's 3,000 pounds of tame.
But don't they have a glass partition between you and the Fluffy?
No.
No?
No, we got in there. When I walked onto the soundstage the first day, I saw Tony Randall going like this. I mean, he had a couple of ticks he doesn't ordinarily have.
Yes.
And he said, Adam, he said, we go inside that cage. The crew stays out here and the camera stays out here. And I said, oh, great. And I turned to the trainer and I said, he had a side weapon. And I said, you better be a good shot. I was kidding around. And he said, well, these are blanks. He said, you think I'm going to ruin an $18,000 animal? I said, oh, great news. I love that. And a $4,000 actor you don't care about.
Of course.
You know?